Hey everybody, welcome to the world building stream. It's not the world building stream, it's the adventure prep stream. How's everybody doing? It is Tuesday afternoon. I started the stream with no water in hand. This is a very unwise thing. I'm gonna grab some water, then I'll be right back. I jumped the gun, y'all. I jumped the friggin' gun. I'll be right back. 1 second. Ugh. Okay, water, where are you? I'm so thirsty. Water. Where does water live? Where is Pancake's house? If it's right here, I'm really a buffoon. No. Okay. Okay. The mystery continues. Water? Fascinating stream content. Okay, well, we'll do it old-fashioned style then. That's fine. I was like, let's start early. That's a good idea. Let me jump right in. Here's some water. But then I found my water bottle, and it's right here by my desk. But that's okay. How's everybody doing? It is Tuesday. It's time to prep some adventures. I have a bit of a bind today, folks, and we will get into that in a little bit. My Tuesday's going okay. My Monday was pretty good. I got a new client, which I'm excited about. It's my first like random kind of walk-in client. It's nobody, like, no word of mouth, no nothing, right? Like, they just found the website and hired me, and they seem sort of excited, which is cool. You know, it's like a rare thing, I feel like, to all of my previous clients thus far have been word of mouth, so to have somebody just randomly find my website and hire me is cool. I've had some inquiries, but they've always kind of petered out. So this one is pretty neat, I think. They want to run, I kind of pitched some campaigns to them, all based on established adventure paths, and they were most interested in the Gothic Horror one, which is cool. So we're probably going to do a Curse of Strahd game. I know Candlekeep Mystery just came out, and I'm thinking about adapting Perkins's adventure in that, because it has kind of like a Ravenloft vibe. So I was reading that earlier today, and that could be cool. I will probably have to spice it up a little bit, because Perkins sometimes does this where he will like fill an adventure full of like atmospheric stuff, but like not a lot of great content, you know? So I don't know if you had a chance to read Candlekeep Mysteries, but the Book of the Raven has some really good ideas in it, but I feel like there's just not a lot happening in the actual adventure itself. So I'll probably just spice that up. I'm thinking about making it more about Von Richten and less about this random family. But yeah, so that's exciting. I'm going to be looking at that later this week. We might do a stream about that, honestly. That could be cool. But today's stream is about Waterdeep Dragon Heist. So for those of you who don't know, I am running a group of kids through that. These are like 11 to 13-year-old kids. They're 5 players. And I started them off with an adventure kind of centered around Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion. And then that kind of led indirectly into Waterdeep, and I threw Waterdeep Dragon Heist at them while they were there. So they've kind of been embroiled in that. Now, this is a heavily modified version of Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I mean, obviously, we're coming in right away with, you know, the Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion as kind of the backdrop. But the conceit, essentially, is that, you know, the party is after I changed it to 1 million golden dragons because it sounded better than like 500,000 or 250,000 golden dragons. They're after this money, and they basically, rather than having the Stone of Galore be difficult to acquire, I basically just sort of handed it to them and said, okay, but it has 3 eyes that are missing, right? If you can find the 3 eyes of the Stone of Galore, then you can find your way to the vault where all of the money is. I've also changed a couple of the factions. I've included all 3 of the 4 villains. I did 3 of the 4 villains. I got rid of the Castellanters because they just didn't feel great for a group of kids, and they weren't as like colorful as the other characters, as Xanathar and Jarlaxle and Manshoon. So I got rid of the Castellanters, but I put all 3 of the factions in. I wasn't really interested in Lord Dagult Neverember. He was kind of boring to me, so I replaced him with Oranax, who is the gold dragon that lives in the vault in the adventure. Waterdeep Dragon Eye spoilers, by the way, if you're watching. And so one of my factions is basically devoted to the dragon. The idea is that the dragon used to be the open lord of Waterdeep, and then ran away at the end of their term with all of their money, essentially like a hoard, and they're now hiding it somewhere under the city. And there are a number of sort of bureaucrats and police and people who are still dedicated to the dragon. And they have basically taken over the Xanatharim in my version. I'm just using the term Cult of the Dragon, right? And they are sort of worshippers of Oranax, the gold. And then I have Jarlaxle, who is pretty much the same as Jarlaxle appears in the book. I don't really care about Luskan so much, so his motivation is much more like he's bored, and he just likes the idea of getting this million gold dragons. It's like a faff for him. So he could very easily be persuaded not to do it anymore, but he's just kind of in it for the lulz. And then Xanathar is almost identical to the way that it's presented in the book, or they, I should say. I have been using it for Xanathar because I kind of think that gives Xanathar like a bit more of an alien feel, right? Like, I think the party kind of assumes that it's male, but that's just because I'm playing it and I have a deep voice, and yeah. But Xanathar is interesting. It's a little different because Xanathar's goal is less about the gold or the war with Xanatharim that it's fighting in the actual book, and it's more about I added this idea that the vault itself is magical in some way, that the Stone of Galore wants to get back to the vault because it's an aboleth and that was once its lair, and that the Beholder wants that lair because it's essentially like a giant Cerebro style like observation dome called the Panopticon, where, from inside this magical chamber you can see everyone in Waterdeep, and you can like basically cast spells on everyone in Waterdeep. So the dragon is there now. It's not really using that. And both the aboleth contained in the Stone of Galore and the Xanathar want access to the vault, but they can't defeat the dragon to get there. So my party is 4th level, I think, and obviously they are, kind of swimming in waters that are much deeper than they can touch. But they've been doing pretty well so far in getting a hold of the stones. The other big change that I've made is that Laurel Silverhand is a major character in the campaign, and I've taken the idea of the Black Viper, who is I think in the book is presented as like a jewel thief, and I've made the Black Viper into more of a Batman-style vigilante, and the notion is that Laurel Silverhand is kind of a Bruce Wayne figure to the Black Viper. That, like, by day, she is this sort of bureaucrat and this, like, figurehead and this leader of the city, but by night she dons the domino mask and the black cape and, like, leaps across rooftops to fight crime. And she's a retired adventurer, that's how she's used to doing things, but now that she's Laurel Silverhand, she can't just go gallivanting around. So she's not a wizard, she's not a chosen of Meester or any of that. She's, or sorcerer, I don't know what Laurel Silverhand actually is, but she is a rogue in my version. So yeah, those are kind of the big changes. So what we need to do today is we need to figure out what my villains are up to. They have kind of been thwarted repeatedly by various efforts of the heroes, and I want to kind of see like what's happening with them. What is their next stage? What's interesting about this campaign is that it is so dependent on player action. It's very reactive, right? Like, there's no real dungeons to go through. There's no real like linear storytelling. It is all reactionary. So you can come up with little hooks and like things to throw at the party, but if they don't bite them or they don't go down that way, right, you have to be able to respond to wherever they go. And this is generally true of urban games. I'm running a Sharn game right now, and that one has a little bit more structure in the sense that it's like a private detective game, but it's very similar in that you need to kind of feel fluid and agile and nimble when the players kind of go adventuring in the city. So let's break these down. So first up, we have Jarlaxle. So what happened last session was pretty dramatic. If you watch the last Mansion Heist prep stream, we talked about this. But I basically have Jarlaxle invite the characters onto his ship to have dinner. And they're there because they were tipped off that someone disguised as Laurel Silverhand was like hanging out around Sea Maiden's Fair. And so they go there and they meet Jarlaxle in his disguise as Zardos Zord, and they really like the character and they kind of fall in love with him. And then everyone in the party falls unconscious except for the elf, because it turns out that the incense that Zardos has been burning is laced with a narcotic, and they all fall asleep. And Zardos Zord basically says, okay, here's the deal. you can all live. No one needs to die if you give me the Stone of Galore, because I know you have it. And this was a dramatic scene, but I feel like it was actually kind of a mistake because so many of the characters were really frustrated by it. Like, I did have them roll Constitution saves. Like, I didn't knock anybody out without giving them a chance to stay conscious, but they just failed them. They all failed them except for the elf, who is just immune to being put to sleep magically. I thought this would be dramatic. This would give this one player, like, okay, you have to make this decision. How does the group react? But you could kind of tell that the player playing the warlock, the elven warlock, felt really trapped by this, and like it was unfun. Like, they felt like they didn't have the ability to fight the situation or do anything. And so they ended up giving up the stone after a little bit of resistance and some kind of like dumb bullshittery about like, do I get a surprise round if I attack him? Like, they didn't understand how powerful Jarlaxle was. And I wasn't going to have Jarlaxle like kill them. Had they decided like, okay, we're all going to pile on this guy. Yeah, I probably would have brought him down a little bit, given fewer hit points, not made him quite such a terror. I do think that there's kind of a misalignment in the way the adventure is written, that the adventure doesn't come out and state that these villains are kind of above your power level. Like, the Xanathar is the one where it feels like, okay, we understand what a beholder is. We probably can't fight this. But Jarlaxle is just like a guy with a sword, right? Like, he's CR 17 or something silly, but there's no indication that the players can't fight him. They would just get their ass whooped, and then they would feel dumb and like they were kind of cheated. So my rule was that if the players really decided to throw down with Jarlaxle, I probably would have made it in reach, like in striking distance, they could have killed him. But it didn't really come to that. So the one player gives up the Stone of Galore, and the rest of the party starts to protest because they feel cheated. They feel like, we weren't able to make this decision, particularly the character who's attuned to the Stone of Galore. But then the party wakes up and they all want to try to rush this guy. And Jarlaxle says, I will give you $10,000 or 10,000 gold to walk away right now. And the party was intrigued by this, and they tentatively agreed. And that's where we ended things with Jarlaxle. So assuming that the party goes along with this plan, right, which, like, I think what they're planning to do right now is to take the money and then, swear not to mess with his business and then just go mess with his business anyway, like go back on the deal, which is perfectly fine. And I even specifically told the players after the session, I was like, hey, I know that got a little frustrating in the middle. I just want you to know that I don't intend to take the stone from you. This is just meant to be an obstacle. You are fully capable of getting it back. Like, this isn't meant to be like, no, you can't have it. Like, this was just kind of a road bump in your way towards, getting the money. I fully anticipate that you will be able to get this stone back. So hopefully that helped kind of allay some of the DM's cheating concerns. But regardless, that puts Jarlaxle in this position where he now has the Stone of Galore, and he has 2 of the 3 eyes that he needs to open the vault. The third eye is in the possession of the Black Viper, who, again, as we said, is Laurel Silverhand in disguise. So the one thing that Jarlaxle doesn't know, maybe we should make a point about this, about what he doesn't know, is that he doesn't know the eye the Black Viper and Laurel Silverhand are the same person. So he actually does not have that information. The party knows this because they've met her in both guises. Hey, what's up, Grant? Yeah, they always go for money. Honestly, I'm going to do a tweet about this at some point, but that's one of my favorite motivations. Is just like, here's a big pile of money. It's not a matter of like save the world stuff. It's like, do you want 1 million gold pieces? Because they will go to, especially if the money is high enough, they will go to like exorbitant lengths to get a hold of it, right? Like, you don't have to keep rewarding them. It's 1 million gold. Are the same person. So he doesn't know that, right? So my immediate instinct as to like, let me break this down a little bit. What we're trying to do today is figure out like next steps for these villains, right? What are they up to? What is the next play for them? That way I can kind of prepare that and get it ready for the session on Friday. So again, because we have to be kind of agile, I don't want anything too hard, but looking at where they are and what they know and what they don't know, how would they kind of react to their circumstances? So Jarlaxle has the Stone of Galore, which is, really one of the 4 pieces he needs, and he has 2 of the eyes. He doesn't have the final eye, and that's what he needs, right? He knows that the Black Viper has the final eye, but he doesn't know that Laurel Silverhand and the Black Viper are the same person. So ostensibly, what his goal would be to track down the Black Viper, right? To see if he can locate any trail of who she is or where she is or what the deal is. So it seems like Jarlaxle's motivation, main goal, is to track down the Black Viper wherever she may lair. What's interesting is that due to some shenanigans, I think it was 2 sessions ago, there was a big parade in Waterdeep, and the party was like running through the parade during a chase scene, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and one of the characters like leapt across the street that the parade was on wearing a black cloak and got a natural 20, and I think somebody like pointed like, look, it's the Black Viper, while Laurel Silverhand was also in the parade. So the prevailing wisdom in the city right now is that like there's no way Laurel Silverhand and the Black Viper can be the same person because they were both seen in the same place, right? Like, I mean, obviously she could have had a body double, and indeed that wasn't the Black Viper, but the city kind of agrees that they can't be the same person, right? So that could be kind of a thorn in Jarlaxle's side. It's not that he doesn't have the resources to find this out, but it shouldn't be the kind of thing he can just kind of snap his fingers and find out. But once he gets that, then he can acquire that eye, right? And he can ostensibly get his way into the vault. So that's the only thing that's stopping Jarlaxle. I kind of think we need to complicate his plan a little bit more. Yeah, right? Especially like cool rogue Silverhand. So, like, how does he go about that, right? Like, he puts agents out in the street. Yeah, let's do it this way. To do this, he sends his informants out into the city to track down any information they can acquire about the Black Viper's identity. What you could do, too, is you could do kind of like a classic, like a reverse Batman. I'm hesitant to like capture her and make her a damsel, but the party is really invested in her as a character. One of the characters is trying to take Laurel Silverhand like out on a date, right? And it hasn't happened yet, but we're ready for it. So you could do a thing like if you need to advance it even further, you know, like yeah, let's maybe do like fronts for this. So let's break this down a little bit. Jarlaxle's plan. Let me make sure that y'all can see where I'm at. Okay, let me scroll this up a little bit. There you go. And that's kind of the problem too, Grant is kind of alluding to, though. Like, yeah, it would be a fun fight to watch, but it's a fight that they'd watch, you know? Like, and that's what I think is kind of a problem with Waterdeep Dragon Heist, is that like none of these characters can really be like faced individually. It's all these powerful NPCs who are running around, and like there's something kind of cool about that, but I just worry that it backseats the players all the time, and that, I don't know, I find that to be kind of blah. I think for some reason it works with the Xanathar, because again, you understand it's CR13, it's in its lair, it's a beholder, right? You know you can't kind of go toe to toe with it, but the Castellanters or Manshoon or whatever, like the party did fight Manshoon at one point, but I specifically had it be a simulacrum of Manshoon, right? And it was like all 5 of them against him. It was still a pretty dynamic fight because he's like CR16 or something like that. But they managed to beat him pretty handily. You got to throw some spells around, but then it's, again, that's kind of like a cheat, right? Where like here you can go up against this person, but I can still kind of keep them in reserve. Honestly, simulacrum is one of my favorite spells because of that. Because of it really lets you do your like villain in the open, and then, you know, haha, not really. Okay, so Jarlaxle's plan is to send informants to locate or to learn the identity of the Black Viper. Now, if he does learn that she's Laurel Silverhand, this kind of creates a problem, because I feel like Laurel Silverhand is going to be really difficult to, yeah, exactly right, Grant. Way too many powerful NPCs. And it's weird that they would then, like, microcosm that in Waterdeep, you know? So he sends out his informants to try to learn the identity of the Black Viper. That can take a while. Like, I think it's okay if Jarlaxle kind of falls by the wayside for a little bit, and then he can kind of like dramatically reappear later. But just to think of like what his like laundry list of things to do are, right? He sends informants to learn the identity of the Black Viper. Once he learns it, he knows, or he realizes, he can't bully or intimidate Laurel, right? Because she's Laurel Silverhand, right? Like, not only can he not, like, maybe he can, like, sneak into her room at night or whatever and give her an ultimatum, but, you know, she's gonna have guards around her all the time. Like, as Laurel Silverhand, she is protected. As the Black Viper, you know, she's like a lone wolf. She's out there doing her own thing. So I think if he's gonna get her, he's gonna have to do it when she's the Black Viper. So what if we do like a Batman style sting, right? Like he sets up a crime that she just has to go investigate or has to go prevent, right? Like he tips her off, maybe even about the location of another villain, right? Another villain. Ooh, what if we do it with Manchun? Where Manchun is hiding. And she falls for the bait. When she arrives at the location, she's drugged with drow poison and taken captive. Yet she doesn't have the eye on her. And refuses to surrender it when questioned. So then, yeah, you could make a whole big thing about Jarlaxle's got a hold of her and he can kind of like threaten the party. Maybe Jarlaxle assumes that the party has it at that point. Jarlaxle threatens the party with her life. Says she'll die if they don't get him the eye in 3 days. Or whatever, right? Yeah, that's cool. Ooh. Oh, man. What if... Oh, my gosh. Okay. When Zerai is the name of our warlock, who is going on a date with Laurel Silverhand, goes on his date with Laurel Silverhand. So, a little background with Jarlaxle. He's got that hat, right? The hat of disguise. I've now used that twice in the campaign to have him pose as NPCs. He posed as Laurel Silverhand the first time that they met, both Laurel Silverhand and Jarlaxle. They went to one of the locations and they found Laurel Silverhand there and they talked to her. And then they saw the Black Viper in the rafters and they chased after the Black Viper. When they finally caught the Black Viper, she took off her mask and was like, okay, I'm Laurel Silverhand. And they're like, what? And they went back and realized, like, that person we first met was an imposter, right? Later, when they went to meet with him at the Seed Maidens Fair, they met Zarda Zord, and they had the whole scene, and then he revealed himself to be Jarlaxle. So he uses disguises all the time. I wonder if this is so cruel. Zerai has been waiting to go on this date with Laurel Silverhand for like weeks and weeks and weeks. They have it set for 3 nights from where we are in the game right now. What if he captures her in the meantime, and then he poses as Laurel Silverhand and goes on the date with Zerai, and that's when he tells the party, like, I have her, right? Like, that's so messed up. Zerai goes on his date with Laurel Silverhand. It turns out that Jarlaxle is Laurel again. Disguised as Laurel, and gives the party their ultimatum. Ultimatum, and she's got to be stored on the submarine, right? Meanwhile, the Black Viper is preparing her own escape. And then kind of whenever I need to, I can have her dramatically escape, right? Perfect for a dramatic twist when needed. Yeah, I kind of think that's enough for him for now, right? Yeah, that's cool. So that's a lot, right? It's like he's got stuff going on. He captures her. They can go on the date. So what we need to do then, if we want to have Jarlaxle kind of like fall by the wayside, for the like kind of the any intervening time, is we need to give the party plenty to do with the other two villains. So let's talk about Manshoon and Xanathar if we can. Okay, cool. So Manshoon is different from how he's presented. Oop, let me scroll that back up. There we go. My Manshoon is different than how he's presented in Waterdeep Dragon Heist because I got rid of the Zentarum. Like, I find the Zentarum to be kind of weird because they're sort of a mafia, sort of a Hydra. Like, what is their exact feel? And I just felt like it was too complicated of an idea to try to express to the kids. So what I did instead is I said that, like, if the dragon had loyalists, right, then they must have a leader. And that leader is this guy, that his like vizier is this wizard named Manshoon. So Manshoon in this version is the leader of the Cult of the Dragon, and he was like the dragon's kind of major domo, and he's like, you know, kind of running operations for the cult and for the dragon's interests in Waterdeep. So what's interesting about Manshoon's motivation is that he doesn't want anyone to get a hold of the gold. Not because he wants it, because he wants the dragon to have it. Their only motivation is to hide it, right, and prevent anyone from going there. They want to control the ability to get access to the vault in case they need to talk to Oranax or escape or do whatever. But they don't want the gold itself, right? Again, which adds an interesting element. I wanted each one of the villains to have a different motivation that wasn't just, I want the money. Jarlaxle just wants the money, right? Manshoon wants to prevent people from getting the money, and Xanathar wants the lair that the dragon is in. So Manshoon's kind of got screwed recently. Manshoon, like, the 10,000 foot view is that Manshoon had the stone, right? And it had the 3 eyes. And they were going to separate them. They're going to do that classic MacGuffin thing where you take the eyes out of the Aboleth stone and then you scatter them across the city, potentially across the world. They didn't quite get that far. When the stone got stolen by an agent working for Laurel Silverhand, and that agent was like going to go deliver it to the mansion because they thought that was the safest place in the short term. The big fireball from chapter 3 happens. The agent dies. The party recovers the stone. The stone obviously is intelligent, and it knows that the eyes were taken out of it, and it overheard where they were going to send those 3 eyes. So they had 3 hiding places throughout the city. I used Waterdeep Dragon Heist's encounter chains to kind of pick the coolest places. So one of them was in the mausoleum that eventually connected to Xanathar. One of them was in the theater, which eventually connected to Jarlaxle. And one of them was in Growlhund Villa, which eventually connected to the Cult of the Dragon. So the party went down and talked to Xanathar, and Xanathar had one of the eyes. They were able to steal it from its hiding place. And against all odds, they convinced Xanathar to give them the eye, basically saying, like, hey, give it to us, and then when we get the gold out, you can have the lair. Now, the Xanathar sort of believed this, but thought, hey, you know, it's better to have agents working for me, and then if they can get their way in, then I'll just show up behind them, kill them, and take the lair, right? So the Xanathar consented, gave them the eye, with every intention of betraying them when it became convenient. The party feels the same way about Xanathar, right? They're like, cool, we are just working with Xanathar right now until such time as we get what we want, and then we'll betray Xanathar. So it's kind of like this mutually agreed upon betrayal that neither one has actually spoken about. They went to go do the Jarlaxle one, and that kind of spun off. Laurel ended up with that one, and she still has it. That's the one Jarlaxle is after. But the third one, the one at Growlhund Villa, they kind of went through these shenanigans to get a hold of. Long story short, they managed to grab it and kind of pluck it right out from underneath Manshoon's nose. They went to Growlhund Villa at the same time the Cult of the Dragon was realizing, like, people are stealing these eyes. We have to go move. You know, their hiding places are not secure. So he sent his simulacrum to Growlhund Villa and met the characters there at the same time. They had a fight. The eye got sent off on a pseudo-dragon that was flying its way towards Manshoon's headquarters. The party chased it down, jumped over the parade, intercepted the stone, fought some cops, and made it back to the mansion none the wiser, right? So they have the second eye, or they had it, and then they put it in the stone and gave it to Jarlaxle, who now has the second eye. The problem, though, is that Manshoon knows where they're going. Manshoon knows who they are, and that they have the eye, and the cops are all on Manshoon's side. Well, at least some of them are. Enough of them are to make it unclear as to who's, again, kind of a Hail Hydra thing. So to me, Manshoon's objective here is to go after the party because, as far as Manshoon knows, the party still has the stone, right? Manshoon doesn't know that Jarlaxle has it. So it seems like some kind of an assault on the manor is the right move here, right? So Manshoon wants to recover the eye stolen from Gralhund Villa. I think it's not an uncommon leap. I don't think it's a ridiculous leap for Manshoon to assume that the party has the whole thing, right? Or has the stone and the other eyes, right? So maybe Manshoon thinks they're gonna like launch this assault. Yeah, that could be cool. So there's like so much to catch up on. So last episode, a lot happened, really. One of the characters is basically working for the Xanathar full time, and is like hanging out in Xanathar's lair and doing like science experiments with magical technology, because they're 11 and that's what's fun for them. But while they were there, because of their direct actions, like the Xanathar, he made a bomb and then he blew up the watch headquarters with it, which, fuck the police. But it, of course, caused the City Watch to retaliate and to raid Xanathar's lair and basically arrest most of Xanathar's organization. The Xanathar itself escaped, but everybody, including this character, is now locked up in prison because they were captured by the Watch. So I like the idea of repeating this notion and having the mansion also get raided by the City Watch, right? So I think that's interesting. Let's do another like Manshoon's plan. Manshoon's plan. Let me know if you can still see that, everybody. So plan number 1, right, is to recover, is to raid the magnificent mansion and recover the Stone of Galore. When they discover that the stone, that neither the stone nor the eyes are present at the mansion, they decide to instead simply arrest the characters rather than taking them to the... And again, like, they probably won't get a chance to arrest the characters. The characters will fight them and escape or do whatever. But I'm just trying to think of, like, what is Manshoon's plan? So that way I know how I can, like, interject it, right? Rather than taking them to the, precinct house, they are taken to Kolat Towers, which is the kind of the... In the book, it's the Zentarim's headquarters. I'm obviously reskinning it as the Cult of the Dragon's headquarters. And imprisoned there off the books. Any characters who are imprisoned must find some means to escape Kolat Towers. So here was an idea I was tossing around that could be fun. Did I not spell magnificent right? Is that not how you... Okay, there you go. There was originally an idea about a fake eye, that one of the 3 eyes was a fraud. I think there's a reference to like a fake stone in the book, which seemed really cool, but it didn't really make sense to me that there'd be a fake stone. But I wasn't quite sure where to deploy it. It was originally in one place, and then that didn't make sense for the plot because of what happened, and so I moved it, and then it was another place, and that didn't really make sense. So I wonder if you put like an additional twist on the whole Jarlaxle Black Viper thing, like what if the Black Viper's eye, the one that she has, isn't real? That for whatever reason Manshoon like stashed a fake eye at the theater, right? Because then you can do this, like there's all this run around to try to get their hands on the eye. It basically, it's like extra insurance that Jarlaxle doesn't just get the third eye and put everything together, right? That the party can go and find the Black Viper's eye. Ooh, they probably have to have like some kind of a bat cave, right? The characters need to track down the Black Viper's bat cave and recover the eye. is this a fake eye? Because again, I like the idea of going and giving it to him, and he puts it in, and it doesn't do anything. And they're like, it's like the more complicated and thorny I can make it, I think the cooler and more thematic it is. So my point is, I wonder if there's something about if we do have a character, at least one or anyone, imprisoned in Kolat Towers as they try to escape, is there a chance that they can recover the real eye, right? Is the real third eye actually still here, and the one sent to the, because there, like, I think originally I had one of the eyes, the one that Laurel has, be a fake eye, and I was going to reveal it to the party. Like, they were meeting with Laurel or the Black Viper, and she had the eye, and she was like, okay, do you want me to put this in the stone? And they were like, no, let's not do that yet, because the minute we do, then we might not, they might tell us where the thing is, or it might reveal the location of the vault. And so they stopped her from putting it in, which means that they didn't learn in that moment that it was fake, right? So I love the idea that, like, it's still a fake eye, you know, and that, like, if they had put it in, they would have known that. It would have changed everything, but because they didn't, they don't know. And so now all this other plot stuff is going to happen. They're going to go to her Batcave and find the fake eye and go deliver it to Jarlaxle. And then that's not going to work. And then they're going to be up Schitt's Creek. I mean, I guess that's the question, is that, like, is that fun? Like, where does that lead? Right? If it's a fake eye, they go and they give it to Jarlaxle. Does he just kill Black Viper? Maybe that's how you do her escape. That, like, Black Viper, they go and they meet him and they give him the eye. And then it's revealed when it doesn't work that Black Viper actually escaped, like, days ago. Right? And he's been bluffing that he still has her. That's kind of cool. Yeah. So let's put that in under Jarlaxle's plan. When the characters return to give Jarlaxle the eye, it doesn't work because it's a fake. It's also revealed that the Black Viper escaped on her own, and he was lying about still holding her. Maybe there's, like, a detail about, like, one of the 3 ships, you know, the Eye Catcher or whatever, is sunk. That, like, in her attempt to escape, she, like, sunk one of the ships. Because I still want to use the submarine at some point. Or maybe did she steal the submarine? Because then she has the sub. Yeah, one of the ships is sunk. Maybe it's I think the Eye Catcher is his, right? The Eye Catcher. And she stole his submarine. Okay, cool. I like that. So, yeah, is the actual eye, is the real third eye actually still here? So they can try to escape. That's cool. I like that. I mean, there might also be, like, a clue to the location of the vault, that, like, the Cult of the Dragon would know where Arnax's vault is, right? That wouldn't actually be a secret because they know all the information. They're just trying to stop anyone else from learning it. So actually getting brought to Kolat Towers, while the Cult of the Dragon thinks it's a good idea because then they're off the books, might give the party everything they need to, like, put the pieces together without the eye. Maybe they can't open the door, but they at least know where it's located. Yeah, that's cool. I dig that. Awesome. Okay, this is really coming together. Sweet. And then lastly, we have the Xanathar. This one's kind of complicated because, like I said, the Xanathar has kind of been an ally-ish of the party, sort of. And where we're at right now with the Xanathar, like I said, they got raided. Originally, the Xanathar had approached the I can't talk. The party's cleric, this dwarf named Plank, about he was recently promoted to, like, Xanathar's science officer, a master of sciences. Because the player is kind of a mad scientist-y, I want to make my own fun sort of a kid. And so I thought, like, you know what? He wants to work with the supervillain. I'll give him access to the supervillain's, like, lab full of inventions, and he can kind of just putz around and do whatever he wants. So he's been kind of doing that on his own for several sessions and seems to be having a good time. So he was tasked with creating a bomb, a like mentally activated bomb that the Xanathar could explode by thinking about it. That would then be placed in the sewers underneath the party's mansion, their headquarters, as insurance against them betraying Xanathar, because Xanathar knew that this would happen, right? That eventually they would betray it, so it wanted like that insurance. However, before they could do this, he made a prototype bomb and he placed it underneath the Watch garrison, because the character has beef against the Watch, which I totally support. And he exploded the Watch precinct house, right? And then it caused a whole bunch of chaos and like wild magic stuff, because it was like a dirty magic bomb essentially. And then the Watch, while he was gone, raided Xanathar's headquarters, and arrested everybody and dragged them all to jail. Now, he was originally free. Xanathar escaped. He spoke to the Xanathar a little bit, and the Watch took Silgar, right? And they were like holding it essentially as evidence. Now, of course, if you don't know, Xanathar has a goldfish that it's in love with named Silgar. And so while Plank the Cleric was away, the Watch came in, arrested everybody, stole Silgar, and then took them all to the precinct house. The Cleric came back, discovered everyone was gone, kind of spent some time like sweeping up, and then met the Xanathar, who essentially like reanimated. It's complicated, whatever. The Xanathar escaped, survived. The Xanathar gave Plank an ultimatum and said, go rescue Silgar or don't come back. So Plank's goal was to go get Silgar. The plan wasn't particularly good, because he just walked up to the precinct house and just asked for the goldfish back, and they, of course, you work for the Xanathar, arrested him, threw him in the cell with the rest of them. So now he is in prison with a bunch of the rest of Xanathar's gang. And that's where we left him. So in terms of this, it's kind of bifurcated, because there's part of like, what does Xanathar want and what does Xanathar do? And then there's also partially, what does Plank do? Ooh, I got it. So Xanathar wants to recover Silgar, right? So what if we do this? What it has it as, so he doesn't have anything, and then, but it does know, because Plank told it, the Black Viper and Laurel Silverhand are one and the same, right? So here's what I'm thinking. This isn't really the Xanathar's plan, but let's do it like this. Xanathar's plan. Yeah, this is actually working out pretty well. The plots are like, oh, you can't really read that. Let me scroll it up. The plots are like weaving together in an actually like pretty satisfying way, which I think is rare. Okay, so the Xanathar wants Silgar back, right? Jarlaxle approaches the Xanathar and asks about information regarding the Black Viper. Xanathar promises to tell Jarlaxle about the Black Viper on the condition that he spring Silgar and also the rest of his gang I guess, from the Watch custody. Once freed and escorted back to, once his gang is freed and escorted back to their lair, Xanathar tells Jarlaxle that Laurel Silverhand is the Black Viper. Great. So then that ties exactly back into Jarlaxle's plan, right? That like, then he tips her off. She goes to get Manchun. All that happens, right? Like, yeah, that's perfect. Okay. So the question at this point is, what does Xanathar do now? So Xanathar's hideout has been raided. So it could be that we now shift it and that Xanathar has to find a new hideout, right? Now where does the Xanathar go? That's kind of interesting. The Xanathar needs a new hideout. Where does it go now? The Watch rumbled its last hideout and will certainly come looking here when they discover Jailbreak. So I'm trying to think of, like, obviously Xanathar is traditionally in the sewers, but I'm trying to think if there's like a cool location that we can have them take over, right? To become like an interesting, like preferably a place they've been before. Or like a famous place in Waterdeep, you know? There's like the walking statues, potentially. I mean, we could just leave it entirely up to the player, because I like the idea of like making Plank find him a new hideout, because he brought the Watch down on them. But then I think Plank is just going to be like, where's a good place? And then I'll have to come up with some options. So I'm trying to think of a neat spot in Waterdeep. Like the Yawning Portal occurred to me. They sort of take it over and run it as a front. Yeah, that might be the answer. It might be the Yawning Portal, because you could do an interesting thing. Like Undermountain obviously exists, like Skullport, but like Skullport is so distant, I feel like, from Waterdeep that, like, you know, meh. I think the Yawning Portal is interesting because the characters have been there a couple of times. They know Dugan. They know he's an ally of Laurel Silverhand. Like, the Xanathar decides to relocate to the Yawning Portal and takes over the bar. It charms. Is it Dugan? Is that the guy's name? Who runs the Yawning Portal? Oh, yeah. That means you guys will see that probably. Let me open up a new file, a new window. Yawning Portal. I think it's Dugan. Durnan. It charms Durnan with its charm ray. Because then you can have fun. Like, the players have met Durnan a couple of times, and he's been very kind of gruff with them, and, you know, Scottish accent, big walrus mustache. So, like, there's something interesting about the idea that, like, if they go there and they meet Durnan, then, like, here's what I think, too. I think that Plank is freed from prison, but is... Oh, what if the rest of the Xanathar's guild is freed? Yeah, the rest of the Xanathar's guild is freed from prison, but not Plank. Yeah. So then, like, then he's kind of cut off, right? Like, Xanathar's like, I actually didn't need you. You didn't come back with Silgar, so you're out, right? Like, I would kind of like to bring Plank back into the fold with the rest of the party. He could obviously go back to Xanathar, but I think there's something more interesting about going back and finding the place is empty, and that then they have to kind of like look for Xanathar. If Xanathar also kind of disappears for a little bit, and they end up just kind of uncovering the fact that he's now sort of running the Yawning Portal, right? That's cool. So let's move this up, actually, because I think that belongs here. Yeah. It charms Journey with this Charm Ray. Maybe it's relocated in the dungeon below the bar. You know, there's like subtle hints. Characters from Xanathar's lair. People like Steel Toes, Amerigo. Others can occasionally be seen in the tavern, right? Like little hints that, like, There's like new management is talked about. New management is occasionally discussed. Yeah, I think that's cool. I want to figure out like what it wants to do from there. I think it's still trying to hold up, waiting for the party to hold up their end of the bargain, right? Like, so maybe it gets impatient once it's like situated in its new lair. Once the Xanathar is situated in its new lair, it reaches out to the party. Yeah, maybe it gives them an ultimatum. Because that's the whole thing, right? It wants to be in the Panopticon, so it's like, I'm temporarily here, but you told me you would get me access. I gave you that eye, and you have not gotten me access yet. Like, hurry it up, right? Like, they have 3 days, right? Like, the idea that they're getting multiple ultimatums from different corners, right, should like increasing the pressure on them, right, to get the beholder access, or it explodes the mansion. Or they face the consequences, right? Or they face the consequences. Yeah, I think that's cool. But then it's just kind of like lurking in the Yawning Portal. And maybe they don't even know that. Like, they get the reminder, and they're not sure exactly where it's happening. Maybe if one of them goes to the Yawning Portal, a merry-go where someone confronts them, you know, that kind of a thing. We have one other villain I might want to talk about, although I think I kind of have that ready to go. Yeah, I think that's good. I know this is like a short stream, but we really like blazed through that stuff. Again, the idea, like, I was thinking about like, do I make an order, like a list of events? And like, I could, but I feel like the whole point is to kind of like stay agile and not get too nailed down to any particular order, right? Like, know what the villains are up to, know what their plans are, what they're going to do next. But obviously the players are going to throw all kinds of monkey wrenches in this. Like, I would be surprised if we make it more than 2 or 3 steps down this line. But I think thinking of the ideas and kind of brainstorming all the different possibilities is really helpful, because then I can stay on my feet, right, and think my way through problems as they do things that are unpredictable. Yeah, I mean, we've only been streaming for about an hour, but I kind of think that's all I need to do today, folks. So yeah, thank you so much for coming and watching and helping out in the chat. Let's talk about the promotional stuff. So I stream on Tuesdays. I stream on Sundays at 6 p.m. PST. And I'm hopefully going to start streaming again on my Twitch channel on Thursdays. I'm thinking of doing like a 5 to 6 video game streams. That'll be 5 to 6 p.m. PST on Thursday on twitch.tv/XP web series. So go check that out. If you like my content, please subscribe here to the channel. There's all kinds of stuff. I've got a huge slate of thoughts from the table that I'm about to start releasing that I've been working on for a couple of weeks since my camp. I haven't had a chance to edit any of them, so they're shot and they're like sitting here waiting to be released. So I need to like burn through those. You'll be seeing a bunch of content coming out in the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, you can follow me on Twitter. I am at XP Web Series. I tweet a lot, largely about games that I run or about world building stuff that I'm doing. If you really like my content, you can subscribe to me on Patreon. I think I'm ProDM on Patreon. And yeah, that's basically all my content. I really love interacting with fans and getting feedback, and these kinds of like world building streams really energize me to get out there and run. Like, it's easy when I just kind of sit in my own head to get kind of down on my ability or down on the campaigns that I'm running or the choices that I've made or the games that I'm in. So I really love kind of having to perform a little bit, dance, because it makes my gears turn. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back on Thursday on Twitch with some video games. Maybe we'll play some Darkest Dungeon. I haven't quite decided what we will be doing then. But thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you next time. Until then, happy adventuring.